I married Clara for her laugh, not her last name. That's worth saying up front because people hear banker ex-husband and estate with a chandelier problem, and they decide I must have chased a lifestyle. Truth is, I chased the woman who wore socks that never matched and made blueberry pancakes that came out like comets, each one a different shape and a little scorched. She could read me without words and hated goodbyes. That was enough. Her past, though, came with a board of trustees, parents who shook hands like they were stamping visas, and a sister who ran on gossip the way cars run on gas. And it came with Richard Bennett, the ex, a banker who walked like a closing bell and smiled like a brand new contract. The first time we met was at a charity gala with too much glass and not enough oxygen. He scanned me the way an app scans a price tag: boots, calluses, off-the-rack suit. His eyebrow twitched when Clara said construction. I said I build things that last. He said he builds value. We both knew which answer would play better in that room. Clara squeezed my arm that night under a table that probably had a pedigree. They'll come around, she whispered. I don't need them to, I whispered back. I wanted to believe it. The invite months later, Clara flipped pancakes in our kitchen and asked if I'd go to her parents for a family meeting. The phrase made my teeth ache. Family meetings aren't for good news. They're for conversations people don't have the courage to hold one-on-one. She kept her eyes on the pan. They want to talk through tension. Which tension? The part where your mom thinks I can't tell a salad fork from a shrimp fork? Or the part where your ex keeps acting like I borrowed you and forgot to return the receipt? She smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. Both. Will Richard be there? Maybe, she said, which meant definitely. I looked at the woman in my old college t-shirt, hair in a looped knot, syrup on her knuckle. She wasn't the polished statue I'd seen in pictures from her former life. She was Clara, messy, brilliant, alive. We go together, I said. Whatever happens. The estate. Her parents' place looked like a museum that charged admission, Persian rugs, oil portraits, and chairs so formal you apologized before sitting. Mrs. Lawson air-kissed Clara like the air might stain. Mr. Lawson shook my hand like he was testing a product return. We were 3 sentences into polite when Richard walked in late on purpose. Tailored suit like it had been poured on him. Watch that wanted its own security detail. He didn't say hello. He said a monologue. Markets, mergers, we closed, we acquired, we secured. The we did a lot of heavy lifting for a man who liked hearing only his own name. I cut my steak and kept my mouth shut because Clara's hand on my knee said please. Richard moved through wine notes and Napa stories like he'd invented grapes. When I reached for my water, the moment happened, the one that told the whole truth about him in one ugly frame. He accidentally tipped his fresh coffee across the table. It hit my chest like a brand. Heat, bitter smell, dark stains spreading on the shirt Clara bought me for this exact dinner. The room did the thing tight rooms do when everyone wants to pretend nothing happened. Nervous giggles, tiny gasps, eyes avoiding mine. Richard put a hand to his chest like he was heartbroken by gravity. Oh, my mistake. Smooth as a talk show host. Just enough volume to keep ownership of the story. Clara didn't laugh. She leaned in, voice so even it cut the room in half. Don't worry, Marcus, she said. That's exactly what it's worth. The laughs died mid-breath. Mrs. Lawson grabbed her pearls and held on like they were a life vest. Mr. Lawson studied his napkin pattern like it had answers. Richard's smile stalled. The mask slipped a millimeter, and underneath it was something raw and mean. Then his phone buzzed. He checked the screen with that practiced, I'm indispensable look. Important client, he announced, which in his language meant, pause your lives, my importance is calling. He answered. We watched the color drain out of his face. His shoulders fell like a tent with the pole kicked out. There must be some mistake, he whispered. Too loud for a whisper. Effective immediately? The call ended him before he ended the call. He sat back down smaller than he had stood up. I've been let go, he said to the tableware. 5 minutes later, the phone buzzed again. A text this time. He glanced. The last of his color left. You didn't need to see the screen to know it was bad, but I caught a flick. An image only Clara and I had ever discussed. Documents, transfers, numbers that didn't add up unless you shaded them. He slid the phone away like it was hot. Clara took a sip of wine, eyes steady, expression calm. I realized then this wasn't luck or lightning. This was timing. And timing, like any tool, is more effective in the hands of someone who knows where to press. The fuse. Here's what I learned later, in quiet pieces on quiet nights. Clara had known things. Not rumors, records. Not drama, data. She'd carried the evidence of Richard's creative accounting like a weight, choosing not to drop it because her parents loved their spotless world and she wasn't ready to break it for them. But a man who weaponizes humiliation earns his consequences. The night before the dinner, she packaged what she knew and sent it where it belonged. Ethics, compliance, counsel. No threats, no notes, just facts with timestamps. When he dumped coffee on me and called it an accident, Clara didn't go to war. She simply stopped standing between Richard and the truth. The week after. The story broke like a storm. Prominent banker under investigation. Words like irregularities and misconduct and forensic review marched across screens. By Tuesday, the vultures were in formation, every outlet pecking. By Wednesday, colleagues who once orbited his table were giving quotes about isolated actions that didn't reflect institutional values. Translation, we never liked him that much. By Friday, country club privileges were paused, board seats vacated, gala speeches postponed. The networking machine he'd used like a weapon turned its face and pretended it never knew him. At the next family dinner, Mr. Lawson asked me about my projects and meant it. Mrs. Lawson didn't use her pearls as a security blanket. Miriam, professional collector of family explosions, was gentler than I'd expected. Maybe even impressed. Clara said nothing resembling "I told you so." She held my hand under the table and squeezed once, the way she does when she's proud and doesn't want to make a scene. The knock Saturday afternoon a week later. Someone knocked on our door. I expected a package. Clara looked through the window and stilled. It's Richard. He didn't look like a headline anymore. He looked like a man a headline had run over. Jeans, wrinkled shirt, hair with no plan. His voice shook. They're investigating, he said, listing 3 agencies and 2 alphabets. I need help. Clara, please tell them it's not true. Clara's eyes did what ice does when it's sure of the temperature. The truth doesn't require defense, she said. Calm, final. He turned to me, a last-ditch mix of threat and plea. You think you've won? This isn't over. It already is, I said, not because I needed a last word, but because I'd finally learned the first lesson of men like him. They only understand finishes, never the work it takes to get there. He left with nothing, which is what he'd brought, aftermath. Life shrinks and expands around drama. Once the noise moved on, our days found their shape again. Coffee, sawdust. Small arguments about how to load a dishwasher, she's wrong but persuasive, and the kind of quiet that comes when no one's trying to prove anything. Richard became a cautionary tale that traveled cocktail parties like a rumor with excellent shoes. We heard he took a job 2 states away, the sort you take when the world knows your name for the wrong reasons. Maybe he's telling himself it's temporary. Maybe he believes it. Hope is cheap. Repair is expensive. Clara's parents changed in increments. They stopped treating me like a tour guide from a different class and started asking me if I wanted more pie. Respect isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's an extra helping without commentary. The more interesting change happened closer to home. I knew Clara was smart. I hadn't realized she had a strategist's spine. She fought like a patient person fights, with preparation, not volume. She didn't throw a punch. She placed a document. She didn't wreck a life. She ended her part in protecting a lie. That's a different kind of courage than the movies celebrate. It's quieter, lonelier, and when the curtain falls, it leaves you with your self-respect still attached. What we kept won. Evening after the door knock, we sat under the cheap string lights on our porch, the kind you can buy in any hardware store. The lights throw a soft halo on peeling paint and believe in you anyway. We split a beer and listened to the crickets. Funny thing, Clara said, looking up where the stars ought to be. He always thought money was power. Turns out power is knowing who you are when someone tries to pour coffee on it. I thought about the stain on my best shirt. The one Clara had picked because she wanted me to look like I belonged in a room that never intended to make me feel welcome. I'd kept the shirt. The cleaners got most of it out, but there's a faint shadow, a ghost of that evening near the second button. I wear it anyway. I like the reminder. People ask, sometimes too bluntly, if I enjoyed watching Richard fall. I tell them no. Not even a little. There's a difference between accountability and revenge. Revenge wants to relive the pain until it's the only thing you feel. Accountability ends it. It says, here's the line. Here's what happens when you cross it. Now the rest of us can get back to work. We did. The last lesson. I used to think Clara married me to run away from something. Now I know she married me to run toward something. Toward unpolished honesty, toward burnt pancakes and second chances, toward a life that doesn't need an audience to be real. Richard's world was gorgeous from a distance and hollow from the inside. Ours is the opposite. Up close, you can see the screws, the seams, the places we sanded twice. It's not glossy. It is sturdy. When wind hits it, nothing rattles that isn't supposed to. If you want the moral, here it is in plain language. Money buys options. It doesn't buy character. Humiliation is a temporary high. Integrity is a permanent address. The truth doesn't rush. It arrives right on time and doesn't apologize for the inconvenience. And love, the useful kind, pours water on fires, not coffee on shirts. The last time Miriam cornered me at a family thing, she whispered, "Be honest." "Did you do it?" "No," I said. He did. Clara laced her fingers through mine and smiled that small, private smile she keeps just for us. We said goodnight, drove home, and put the shirt with the ghost stain back on its hanger. In the morning, I wore it to a job site and measured a beam twice before I cut it. I build things that last. Turns out so does she.